Yo, what's up, betas? Here with my sparkling water. I woke up after a long night of being a top G. Bitch over here, bitch over here. I was like, fuck, move bitch. Went straight to work. Who needs sleep anyway? Sleep is for betas. Betas need sleep. Losers need sleep. Not top Gs like me. I don't need sleep. I hate to go out making money, making moves, pimping hoes, being a top G in these streets. Not like you brokies. You betas. Where's your Bugatti, huh? I hate betas. I hate betas almost as much as I hate women's rights.
So I think I'll start this video off with a personal story. Obviously, like many well-off, privileged, middle-class people who grew up middle-class and stuff, you know. So I kind of grew up in like, you know, my late teens, early 20s, very like progressive, around a lot of like woke, progressive propaganda, that kind of stuff. Even at my most like woke progressive at like ages 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, at like the peak of it, I still never ever called myself a feminist. Like, I just couldn't. Like, the connotations with like being like a male feminist are just so fucking bad. And now, obviously now, since I pulled away quite a bit from the like really far left, really progressive kind of ideology kind of stuff, after I pulled away from that quite a bit, I obviously don't call myself a feminist now. Just a disclaimer, when I say I'm not a feminist, I'm not talking about like the straw man kind of thing where it's like, oh what? You don't think women should have equal rights? Oh my god. Feminism is just about equality, bro. You don't think women should have equal rights? Shut the fuck up. Please. You and me know both that feminism today in like the West is not just an equality movement. If it was, why aren't any of these Western feminists fighting for the rights of women in like all these third world countries who are literally enslaved right now? Why don't you go protest right outside the Taliban's headquarters down in Afghanistan against their actual, literal, like, sexist laws, where they literally ban women's education, enslaved them to the home, basically. What, not so brave now, are we? No, it's much more comfortable doing slut walks down in fucking Florida and New York when you know Joe Biden won't do shit about it. So if it was really about equality, they would be fighting where it's really needed. Feminism in the West today, it's like a women's empowerment movement. It's like an activism speaking for women's voices kind of movement, which is like, it's not a negative or a positive, it's just a thing. Like, it's just that. Like, obviously there's manifestations of it that are going to be pretty negative and toxic, like in media or in like social media especially. There's going to be manifestations of it that are positive, just like most things. But who am I to judge? If you want to be that guy who slaps a giant neon pick-me sign on yourself and make it your whole identity just for a crumb of pussy, then be my guest. It's probably not going to work. I'm one of the good ones, ladies. I'm on your side. Surprisingly, hasn't gotten many guys laid. There's kind of been this massive sweeping backlash against like progressivism, where a lot of young men are turning more conservative these days. And we've seen that manifestation in the latest US presidential election. Young men are moving right, they're becoming more right-wing. Support for movements like, you know, women's rights and LGBT rights has taken a significant backslide amongst like Gen Z young men. And there has been a worrying rise of far-right movements all across the Western world, in Europe and the US and Canada. But how did we get here? How did we end up in this place? I want to talk about the left's attack on men. So there was this culture in the era of, I want to say, end of 2016, 2017 till 2021, and particularly 2018, 19, 2021. That was the era of peak woke. At that point, the cultural levers, especially online and in media, were controlled by very far left activists. And who were their main punching bags? Men. White men specifically. And I'm ashamed to say that at the time, I got caught up in some of it. I got caught up in a lot of that movement because it was like, it's coming from a good place, and I was coming from a good place, and I thought it was like, okay, I want to be on the right side of history. This is good. I could make like an entire video on just this, but alas, here we are. Then there was the backlash from 2022 until basically now and going forward. Particularly after the COVID pandemic. COVID broke so many people's brains. We reached kind of the peak woke kind of thing in 2020 along with COVID and like all the lockdowns and shit, and that just kind of destroyed people's minds. After that, the rise of cultural figures like Andrew Tate and the Red Pill and all that kind of stuff. You pair all that with COVID and everyone was locked inside, addicted to their phones, addicted to social media, very prone to going down like rabbit holes and pipelines of like algorithms of apps like TikTok and short form content and stuff, like really cancerous kind of stuff. It definitely broke my brain. TikTok definitely broke my brain in like 2020 and 2021. And that contributed to the rise of the backlash against progressivism amongst young men, basically. During that famous 2022 Tate summer, the summer where Andrew Tate basically took over the entire internet and took over TikTok, I'm also ashamed to say that I kind of got swept up in that as well. Not fully, it was kind of half ironically at that stage. If I was a bit younger, I would have fully probably got swept up in it. I was 23 at the time, it was kind of half ironic, all my friends got swept up in it. But I definitely enabled a lot of it too. So this was like 2022, 2023, when he was at his peak, at the peak of his powers. I will still maintain, and I made a video about this that's like privated now on the channel, but I was like, he was needed in a weird sense. This backlash was needed because we did, I feel like, go too far woke. The culture was too hostile towards like 50% of the population. We needed kind of someone like Andrew Tate to be like a wake-up call for us. We needed that like pendulum swing back a little bit from going too far on one side. But now we're in 2025 and I feel like it's probably gone a bit too far. The rise of far-right fascist movements all over Europe and America, led mainly by TikTok and like Gen Z young men of the West, infested with TikTok propaganda and just loads of bullshit. And we have a world where echo chambers are split between men and women, men and men's content. Basically, before we had a case where it was like men had certain content that they liked and that were drawn to, like fitness, you know, MMA, boxing, sport, that kind of stuff, and women had their kind of content and it was fairly apolitical. But now it's like we're in a world where all of the male spaces, whether it's like fitness, whatever, is infested with right-wing ideology, and all the women's stuff has a lot of left-wing ideology woven into it. So we have like two separate echo chambers for politics, basically, that's divided the sexes in a way that's never been seen before anywhere. Like, all this to say, the answer isn't to go back to peak woke of like 2016 till 2021. The answer is not to be a male feminist, not to like be all enlightened centrist or whatnot, but I feel like I can comfortably say, after initially riding the progressive wave when I was young in college, and then riding the counterculture red pill wave of like 2022, 2023, I feel like I've arrived at a pretty like centrist position at the moment. But why shouldn't you go back to like peak woke or whatever? Because these people just don't care about you. These people are cancer in their own way as well. Not always, but like if you're a young man, for a lot of time they are going to be pretty bad for you. Like these kind of feministic societies and these like movements and groups, they're what pushed and vilified people like us young men for so long and made it so that the right wing had like a perfect opportunity to grab all of us and grab all our cultural spaces, and now all our spaces are basically controlled by the right. But the left, they're not showing any signs of changing their tune at all. Given that after the 2024 US elections, all like the left media are like, okay, we need to combat the right's control and stranglehold of like male media spaces and stuff. We need our Joe Rogan of the left. And they're propping up Hassan fucking Piker.
And then what are you gonna do with it? Okay. Yes.
This is the dude who I'm supposed to believe is going to resonate with radicalized young men and bring them back to the left. These motherfuckers never learn, do they? So yeah, that side doesn't care about men. They don't understand us and they never will. So let's not go back there. So interestingly, the Democratic Party's website, if you go to it, they have this part where they talk about all the different groups that they kind of support and represent, and it's like LGBTQ people, minorities, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, blah blah blah, and like women, but there's no men.
And speaking of, you know, what happened in this election, it's really interesting because if you look at the Democratic Party's website, I don't know if y'all have ever seen who they want to help. So they'll list like 12 or 13 groups of people: rural people, LGBTQ people, you know, people of different ethnicities, and then at the very end they say women. But there's no men.
When I first heard Dr. K talk about it in that clip, I was like, nah, well, surely can't be. And I checked and it's true. What the fuck do you expect? Like, you continuously show that you don't care, you don't acknowledge our problems, the serious problems that many male face, like specific male problems like suicidality, higher rates of suicidality, higher rates of dropping out of education, failure in education, the education system being so biased, and just basically men checking out of education, higher education, or dropping out at a much higher rate. Aren't like most college campuses in the West right now are like 60%, 70% women. Women have been graduating at higher rates than men since the 70s, I think. Like, something's going wrong. Homelessness overwhelmingly affects men. Drug addiction, that kind of shit. And you're too afraid to acknowledge it because you're held hostage by that very loud vocal minority of like far left feminist activists that are like, for some reason you're held hostage by, like, you're a political party, grow some balls. These far left activists mostly exist online anyway. They don't fucking vote. Most of them don't vote. They hate you anyway. Don't most of them say like the Republicans or Democrats are basically the same? Like, don't the far left hate both parties anyway? So it's like, why are you being held hostage by them?
Final question from my perspective. I have an audience of who are considered, I guess, like the dispossessed of the Democratic Party. So younger white men, basically. What do you think? Yeah.
We're women and we're dispossessed too. We're
Sure. Okay.
We're homeless too.
Sure, yeah. Do you think that there's anything in particular that the Democratic Party can do to kind of like win some of these people back? Like, in particular, do you think it's just the broad message narrative?
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, and you'll understand this based on everything I've said, I don't think things like, what could I do to win them back? Sure. That's the kind of language that doesn't even reside in my heart. My heart is, where have we failed them?
Gee, I don't know, maybe look at what you just said 3 seconds ago. Make no mistake, the toxic cesspool that we're in today is not the answer. Donald Trump, Andrew Tate, Red Pillars are not the answer. Joe Rogan, maybe 5 years ago, but as he exists today, is not the answer. The stranglehold far-right propaganda and far-right movements have on all like male content spaces is cancerous, and we kind of need to move past that. This kind of echo chamber we created where all male spaces are basically controlled by like one side of the political aisle and like giving their messaging in that space. And same on the female side, obviously all female content has like certain feminist and like very far left messaging in it as well. That's like destructive. Like the video that I made talking about this, that put up, like, I'll show the screenshot of it here, like that video I made about like right-wing spaces in male whatever, it got disliked to fuck. It got ambushed and hijacked by a bunch of Trump supporters, I imagine. People hated it. They think I'm some fucking sort of woke soy SJW because of it, and it's like, I'm not. I hope this makes it clear that I'm not. We need to be back together in the same spaces. We need to like see each other as people and as on the same team again. We need to make our spaces, sport, comedy, that kind of thing, or makeup tutorials, whether like gym content or frickin' astrology content. We need to make that apolitical again. Like, think about it today, if you're like a teenage guy, or like even in your early 20s, you can't be a male nowadays without being ambushed with this kind of stuff. Like, if you're a young guy and you're like, alright, I want to play some video games, and you're watching your favorite gaming YouTubers and streamers, they're all MAGA Republican fucking fans now. And then you're like, alright, I want to go to the gym, I need some gym tips. You go onto like your favorite gym influencers and you start watching more of their content. They're all MAGA. You go to the gym, you get rejected by a girl and you're like, I need some dating advice. You go into dating advice, pickup artist, Red Pill. They're all MAGA and they're all giving right-wing talking points. You're like, okay, I want to go for a run. You go for a run, you get your phone, you put on your AirPods and you put on a podcast. You're Joe Rogan. MAGA. Then you're relaxing for the evening, you're like, oh, I want to watch some comedy. You watch some stand-up comedians nowadays, and they're all making like anti-Kamala Harris, anti-Biden, pro-Trump joke, because that's what's popular in the comedy sphere right now, because they're all basically Roganites. Or if you're a woman and like you like makeup and you want some advice on makeup, you watch enough of their content, I'm sure they're all like, men ain't shit, like go get the bag girl, whatever, women's empowerment, and like, or if you're a woman and you're like, you're heartbroken over a boy and you want to watch some content about like getting over a breakup or something, and you watch your favorite influencer and it's like they're talking about like patriarchy and like misogyny and the microaggressions of fucking the white supremacist capitalistic class, like that kind of shit, and it's like, please, can we stop? So yeah, forget the blue pill, forget the red pill, forget the black pill. It's time to take the centrist pill, or the Moxy pill.